Our work to protect Maine lakes is in huge measure accomplished by volunteers. I believe the future of our lakes in Maine depends on the thousands of volunteers working across the state.
Community Financial Literacy is a small nonprofit organization based here in Portland, Maine. CFL wouldn't have been where we are without using the volunteers.
Yeah, our 250 volunteers, they gave 24,000 hours last year. They give tours, they do everything from the menial to mowing the lawns every week to landscaping to really in-depth skilled labor like cataloging the collections and giving tours of our historic 19th century shipyard.
Because we have about a little over 50 senior Medicare Patrol volunteers, and they really expand our staff capability exponentially.
Our volunteers, specifically working with children, can be a really positive influence in their lives, not only providing them a delicious, nutritious meal to eat, but then also being a mentor and being a positive role model in the community.
I've volunteered since I was 15 years old, so it's just taken different forms. I was even in AmeriCorps Vista volunteer here in Maine after I retired. So yes, it does keep you energized and active, but more so it's just the opportunity to serve others.
Yeah, we have a senior volunteer, if you will. Her name is Janet, and she's been with us for 10 years or more. From filling a few hours, Janet went to revamp our entire filing system and wound up becoming an integral part of the fabric of our office work, just out of her own volition. And so now she's sort of part of our family, and I guess that was the point of our story, is that she goes out and shares her love for the building and the organization with others, and that causes them to come to the theater and see what we do, which means we're there to provide art for our community.
6 years ago, we started the Welcome Weekend Day of Service, which happens the weekend that our first year students move in. They move in on Friday. On Saturday morning, we get them all up and ship them off to do community service projects all throughout the greater Bangor area, anything that's within half an hour of campus. So we had about 2,000 people on Saturday morning that were walking, busing all over this area. We visited 30 different community organizations. Each of the groups is generally 30 to 35 students.
We had a client who was not able to come to our office because they're a disabled veteran. And this person had a wheelchair that was no longer operational and had been trying to get a replacement. The agency that they were going to get the wheelchair from insisted that the person come to that agency to be measured for the wheelchair. And the person can't go because their wheelchair that they have now isn't working. So our volunteer took it on themselves to work with that agency and agreed to have them come to the home, do the measurement, and now the person has the wheelchair and is able to get around. So you never know what the repercussions are going to be by having a caring volunteer working in your program.
Well, one of the stories that I love to tell people was about last summer. It was a beautiful day, and we have a wonderful cruise boat that goes out in the Kennebec River for daily cruises. And we had a visitor, a woman who was so excited. She really wanted to go on a cruise, but unfortunately she got seasickness. And she was sort of hemming and hawing, like, I really don't want to go out. It's not going to be fun for me. And one of our volunteers, who was basically the lead volunteer that day, BSA, his name was Ray Hender, he snapped right up on her and was like, what can I do to help? He was just such a sweetheart, and you could tell that visitor's day was made by that experience, and we have those kinds of experiences every day with our volunteers.
I started out as a client in a program that I run years later. I moved here and I was a single mom, and I didn't have a way to keep my family fed. I didn't know what to do and how to do. So some people have time, some people have skills, some people have energy. That's your volunteer base. And I became a volunteer because I didn't have another way to give back, and you can't just take and not give back. And lots of people want to give back in some form or another. And that's your volunteer base. And that's how I got involved. I am the people that I serve.
One of the things that really inspires me about the volunteers here in Biddeford is the diversity of the volunteers that step up. So you have UNE college students next to the Knights of Columbus from the local church, next to retirees, next to people who have to do community service as part of their judicial processes, and they're working together and cooperating and laughing. The commonality among all of them is that they all want to give back to the community. They see each other as equals as they're doing that and building connections through volunteerism. It's pretty great.
She volunteers with someone who's totally blind, and she's been able to help her really stay away from the isolation she was feeling and be out in the community much more. And that person wanted to go to the ocean so much, so she took her there, and she could see how much she was taking in the smell of the ocean and enjoying it so much. And then something came to mind for her, and she noticed that there were a bush of flowers close by, and she brought her over there to smell them. And tears started coming down the eyes of the client, and she said, "That's my mom. That's what she smelled like." And it was such an experience for both of them. And that's what our program is about, both the volunteers and their clients in the Senior Companion Program.
Probably the biggest thing is the absolute relief that the clients feel when they come out of a meeting with one of our volunteers, one of our trained volunteers. The emotion that you can feel people sort of, I've got this solved, this big weight has come off me. It's just, you couldn't buy that. It's just so valuable to the clients.
Well, I think it's amazing what can be done with volunteers and the talents that they bring to a task, and it's often surprising to me just what you can marshal in terms of strengths that people bring, such as building this kiosk and taking care of the trails here at the property.
Well, I specifically work in the education department, so I see the volunteers who are actual students. So I get to watch them grow as they inspire their peers, because they're all kids in the area, teenagers in the area who have been on stage for a good number of years and really are there as mentors for the younger children that we coach.
Knowing that the average age of our volunteers is 75, and that they're willing to share themselves when many of them have some of their own challenges, but to spend an average of 20 hours a week helping others really inspires me.
For our students here who come back to us now as we're gearing up for our 2015-2016 mentoring experience, who are so excited to be back with their student. It's not just a bit of fun at this point, but it's a meaningful relationship for them as well.
Yeah, they're not just coming back because they're excited about being in the program. They're coming back because the little kid that they've been matched with is important to them. We're even now starting to see children that have been in our program coming to UMaine as students. And that is our ultimate goal, is to have these kids see themselves succeeding in the future.
If it wasn't for the volunteers just reaching out and helping us, I don't think any of this would be possible. We wouldn't be able to do what we do.
We would not have an impact on hundreds of Maine lakes if we didn't have volunteers to carry our messaging and our programs to their communities.
The museum literally could not operate without our volunteers. It would be impossible. Because of the size of the institution and how many visitors we get annually, and the fact that we only have 17 full-time staff, it just wouldn't be possible.
I mean, we literally could not do it without them. We do so many programs and cruises and lectures, and none of it would be possible without them.
So, without the volunteers, it would be impossible for us to function.
Our volunteers make a tremendous difference in our agency. We'd have to close our doors without them.
Well, for our Mentors and Tutors program, without volunteers, there wouldn't be a program. All of our mentors are volunteer-based, many of our tutors are, and it's their willingness to devote that time with us, but also to devote that energy, that emotional space, to be so willing to form that relationship with our kids. Without that, we couldn't function at all as a mentoring program. We couldn't provide that support that we do for our kids.
I'd have to do a lot more than I do now. We'd get it done, but it just would be more work for fewer people.
Well, I think everything would be different in the community if we didn't have volunteers, because we have thousands of hours of people helping out every year. But I think the biggest impact, which you don't necessarily see in numbers, is the sense of engagement and citizenship that you see because of volunteerism. That means that people will become more involved, more informed, more engaged, and have an impact and participate, and that's what I really love to see.